Today, we're going to take a journey with a single drug molecule to really understand this critical process called absorption. Whether you're a student deep in pharmacology or just curious about how your medicine actually works, this is for you.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to follow a drug from the moment you take it all the way into your bloodstream. We'll look at the walls it has to get through, the different doors it can use, and all the real-world curveballs that can get in its way. So, first things first. What's the actual goal for any drug we take? Well, it's not just about getting into our blood. It's about getting the right amount in there to do its job. And this graph, right here, tells the whole story perfectly. You see, the drug concentration has to get high enough to actually work, but if it gets too high, it can cause problems, side effects. That sweet spot in the middle, where it's effective but still safe, that's what we call the therapeutic window. So, this whole process of getting the drug from where you took it, say a pill in your stomach, into your bloodstream so it can travel around your body, that has an official name: absorption. And believe me, it is the absolute first and maybe the most important step in this entire journey.
But here's the thing. To get into the blood, our little drug molecule first has to cross this massive barrier that makes up, well, pretty much everything in our bodies, the cell membrane. Let's take a closer look at this gatekeeper.
I want you to think of this membrane like a super selective bouncer at a club. It's made of a fatty or lipid layer, and it's really good at keeping stuff out. So for a drug to get in, it has to figure out a way to get past this fatty barrier. And as you can see here, there are basically two ways to get past that bouncer. A drug can either try to squeeze between the cells, that's the paracellular route, or, and this is much more common, it can go straight through the cell itself. We call that the transcellular route. Now, most drugs, they like to take the path of least resistance. We call this passive transport. Just think of it like coasting on a bike downhill. It doesn't take any energy from your body at all. This right here is the big one. It's how over 90% of drugs get absorbed. The whole idea is incredibly simple. Things just naturally move from a place that's super crowded to a place that's less crowded. From your gut, where there's a ton of drug, into your blood, where there isn't any yet. And here you can see it happening. You've got all these drug molecules bunched up on the outside. They just naturally want to spread out, so they move across that membrane to the other side to try and even things out. It's just basic physics at play.
So, there are a few key rules to this process. 1, it's a totally energy-free downhill ride. 2, and this is important, it's not saturable. That means there's no traffic jam. The more drug you have, the faster it goes. And finally, it works best for drugs that are lipophilic, meaning they love fat and can easily dissolve right through that fatty cell membrane.
Now, there are a couple of other passive tricks drugs can use. You've got pore transport, which is kind of like a secret door, a special protein channel for tiny water-loving molecules. Then there's ion pair transport, which is really clever. A charged drug can't get past the fatty membrane, so it grabs a partner with the opposite charge. Together, they become neutral and just sneak right past the bouncer.
Okay, so some passive transport uses a little helper, a protein called a carrier. But, and you can see it right here on this graph, there's a catch. Look at the straight line for simple diffusion. It just keeps going up and up. The carrier-mediated one, though, it levels off. Why? Because there are only so many of those helper proteins to go around. They get maxed out or saturated, and that puts a speed limit on how fast the drug can be absorbed. So what happens when a drug needs to move against the flow? From an area of low concentration to an already high one. Well, for that, you need a whole different system. You need active transport. This slide just nails the difference, doesn't it? Passive diffusion is all downhill, just following the natural flow of things. Active transport, that's the ski lift. It uses your body's energy to literally pump the drug uphill completely against its natural tendency. So let's just break it down. Active transport absolutely requires energy, usually from a molecule called ATP. It moves uphill against the grain. And because it always relies on a limited number of protein carriers to do the heavy lifting, the system can always get saturated or maxed out. And this system has a couple of different power sources. You've got primary active transport, which is really straightforward. It just burns ATP directly for fuel. But secondary active transport is a little more crafty. It actually hijacks the energy from another molecule's gradient, like sodium ions rushing into the cell to power its own uphill pump. Pretty smart, right? Okay,
So we've got the basic mechanisms down. We know how drugs get across. But the journey isn't happening in a perfect little lab. It's happening in the human body, and it can be affected by dozens of real-world factors that can change everything.
Seriously, think of it like a board game where any square can change the outcome. The drug itself matters, how big are its particles. The pill it's in matters, what other ingredients are in there, and you matter. Your age, any diseases you have, even how fast your stomach empties can play a huge role. I mean, just taking a pill with grapefruit juice instead of water can completely change how much of it gets absorbed. It's that sensitive.
And where the drug is in your body matters immensely. Location, location, location. While a little bit of absorption might happen in the stomach, the small intestine is the main event. Why? Because it has this massive folded surface area. If you spread it all out, it's about the size of a tennis court. That gives drugs a huge window of opportunity to get into the bloodstream.
All right, our drug made it. It was successfully absorbed from the gut. But hold on, it's not over yet. Before it can get out into the body and start working, it has to face one last major challenge.
And this slide shows that final gauntlet. See, once a drug is absorbed from the gut, it doesn't just go into general circulation. No, it all gets funneled through a special blood vessel directly to the liver. And you can think of the liver as the body's main processing plant and quality control center.
What this means is the liver gets the first crack at the drug, and it can chemically change or metabolize a big chunk of it, often making it totally inactive before it ever reaches the rest of your body. We call this the first pass effect, and it's basically like a liver tax. This is exactly why the dose of a pill you swallow is often way higher than the dose you'd get through an IV.
So understanding this whole complicated journey, that is the key to modern pharmacology. The next time you take a simple pill, just think about the incredible obstacle course it has to run just to get to work. It's this knowledge that lets scientists design smarter drugs, from special coatings to nanoparticles. Which leaves us with the big question for the future. How can we learn to navigate this journey?